So this topic is kind of a lost cause. There's no real reason to talk about it, aside from just the discussion fodder that it provides, because the Olympics are not going to happen anymore for NHL players. Nevertheless, though, this did pop itself up a few weeks ago, or was it just a week ago? No, it's the 23rd, my goodness, a week ago. And I initially saw this on dailyfaceoff.com and I was like, darn, what an interesting video topic that is. Let's go over the Toronto Maple Leafs and their starting netminder Jack Campbell. Because when it comes to how Campbell has performed this season in the National Hockey League, he has been an absolute stud. What he was supposed to be when the Dallas Stars drafted this guy all those years ago, he is today, and even more so with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Jack Campbell, as we all kind of know because Toronto is the center of the hockey world, is the starting netminder for this team. He's 29 years old, 6'3", 207. He's making $1.65 million a season, which is a severe underpayment for his services and the caliber of talent he provides. That contract expires at the end of this season, and because of the uncertainty with the Toronto Maple Leafs and their salary cap management, we don't really know if Jack Campbell is going to stick around with this team long term. Obviously, you know, the media, the press conferences, oh, they want him back, oh, he wants to stay here. We know this is what we always hear every single time it happens, but until the pen is signed to the dotted line, I have no idea what Campbell's future holds in the next season's worth of play. But because he was supposed to be the guy to split the load with Peter Mrazek, and because Peter Mrazek has been the unfortunate subject of a few misfortunes, Jack Campbell has pretty much been the main guy and only the main guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. Last year, he played 22 games at a .921 save percentage and a .215 goals against, and he's playing on a team that is playing in a weak North Division. That's why McDavid had so many points, because the North is weak. In the playoffs, though, against the Montreal Canadiens, Campbell, even though he did end up with the loss, still had a really good statistical profile. 7 games played against Montreal, a .181 goals against, and a .934. The only problem was, the Montreal Canadiens and Carey Price, they went out there, they shut the door in games 5, 6, and 7, including a few comeback wins in overtime. Sure, even though Jack Campbell was the goaltender who allowed these shots to go in, you could blame a lot more on Travis Dermott than you could on him, but still. Campbell was a great goaltender last season, and it's why this year, you take a look at where he is in the NHL standings. Hey, 23 games played, he has bested his statistical profile from last year with a .194 goals against and a .937 save percentage. He's got 3 shutouts out of his 15 total wins. He's only lost 5 times, so Campbell has really been one of the better goalies in the league. So much so that he is top 5 in total goals against average for all goaltenders, and he is top 4 in save percentage, tied with Igor Shesterkin. You take a look at the advanced analytics as well. Everybody's talking about expected goals for, expected goals against, goals that these goaltenders save that probably should have not been saved. Campbell is one of the top goaltenders in the NHL when it comes to those statistical categories as well, so for all intents and purposes, Campbell has just been elite. And he's only making 1.65, but that's kind of the problem for next year and the years beyond that, not really today. Despite this fact, though, Jack Campbell, as an American guy, he is all the way there from Michigan. He was a guy that a lot of people were projecting to being a potential candidate for the Team USA squad at the Olympics. Now, I get it, Olympics are not happening, there's no real reason to talk about this, but I still think it's a fun thing to talk about, so let's go ahead and do that anyway. And because Jack Campbell was the best statistical goaltender in the NHL for all Americans, unless you want to go out there and count Charlie Lindgren, who's also from America, he's from Minnesota, he's played 5 games, he's got a .958 and a .122. But of course, sample size, also the fact that Lindgren has been an AHL goaltender the rest of his entire career, it's tough to even see where this came from. But overall, when it comes to primary starters in the NHL, Jack Campbell is probably the best American one in the eyes of a lot of people looking at the league. Which is why, when we had ourselves Frank Saravelli go out there on the Daily Faceoff show and talk about how the Jack Campbell success story would not head over to Beijing, it got a lot of eyebrows raised. Here's the article on the website, Daily Faceoff Show. The Leafs' Jack Campbell is not on Team USA's Olympic list. Now, this was a segment between Mike McKenna, who is a former goaltender and former Vancouver Canuck, as well as Frank Seravalli. Let's go over the conversation they have had. We're going to take a look at Jack Campbell next. This is a goaltender who's been playing lights out. I think this guy's absolutely a Vezina candidate this season, McKenna says. He's been carrying the Maple Leafs, who have been looser defensively than people realize. They can score goals like crazy, but you look at Campbell's numbers, his traditional numbers are fantastic, but his goals saved above expected and all of his advanced metrics are in the top 3 of the league. Yet, he wasn't on Team USA's long list for the Olympics when it was turned into the International Olympic Committee back on October 15th. What's going on here? Seravalli talks about how this is the nugget right there. That's caught some people by surprise. You look at how the season has unfolded and how Jack Campbell has been for the Maple Leafs. You look at some of these projected rosters out there, and I've seen Jack Campbell's name on a lot of them. But, to my knowledge, Campbell was not on that list, and therefore won't be eligible to play for Team USA at the Olympics if, of course, NHL players ultimately end up going. I think the next question becomes, if not Jack Campbell, who would the Team USA goaltenders be? There are 3 guys right here that it looks like it's shaking up to be, and then they throw up a graphic with John Gibson, Connor Hellebuyck, and Thatcher Demko. Now here's the thing. A lot of people are going to go out there and talk about these 3 and say, oh, but Jack Campbell went out there, look at his numbers compared to these guys. You know, there are arguments to be made. And I'm going to go out there and try to take my stab at this right here. So, Thatcher Demko is the easiest one for me to go out there and defend and say that his numbers are absolutely not indicative of the way this guy plays. Had this guy not been under the Vancouver Canucks and Travis Green, his numbers would have been up there. The thing is, Thatcher Demko was the very sole reason the Vancouver Canucks even had a chance of making the 3rd round back in the 2020 bubble. And Bubble Demko is what everybody likes to call him. He absolutely came out here and came to play this season too. It's just the Canucks and their poor defense and Travis Green and all that, it sucked. Really, really bad team right there. So even though Thatcher Demko went out there and gave the Vancouver Canucks a chance to win every single night, they blew it in front of him. And the numbers are suffering because of that. And even though Thatcher Demko may not have better numbers than Jack Campbell, it absolutely makes the most sense in the world to me as to why he would be included on the Olympic list. Next up, Connor Hellebuyck. Even though his statistical profile has taken somewhat of a nosedive this season compared to what he has had in the past 2, a 915 and a 270 isn't bad per se, it's just comparative to what Hellebuyck has done in the past. You can kind of see why you would question the decision-making of having him here, but you gotta go with reputation, and when it comes to NHL goaltenders and Olympic stuff, they always love to go with the guys they feel the most safe with. Connor Hellebuyck has been an absolute stud the previous few seasons. He has a Vezina to his name for a reason. And that sense of security is something that a lot of NHL executives, etc. are going to be looking at when they evaluate who should make the Olympics and all that. In Jack Campbell's case, he had been up and down in the AHL and the LA Kings for a while. And by the time he made his full-time debut with the Kings, or not debut, but actually being a part of the team for an extended amount of time, Connor Hellebuyck was winning Vezina trophies, so that's kind of the timeline and where things align here. It's easy to see why Connor Hellebuyck would be on the list, and same with John Gibson. You want to talk about that level of security. John Gibson has been one of the best American goaltenders the past few seasons, with the exception of last year and the year before that. Obviously, playing on Anaheim hasn't been great for John Gibson. It's why he's been involved in trade rumors left and right. But we know that at his best, he is capable of being one of the best in the league consistently. And again, the extended amount of time that he has had this reputation for, it's been so good for John Gibson as early as 2015-16? He was super good out of the gate, super good consistently, had a few AHL stints here and there, but John Gibson is an absolute beast. And when it comes to trying to project everything back in October, it makes sense to me why they would say, okay, Demko because of the bubble Demko, Connor Hellebuyck because of the Vezina and because of the body of work, and John Gibson because he's so young and so consistent. We're going to go with these 3 on our short list, and it's the beginning of October. We haven't had the season start out yet. We don't know if Jack Campbell is going to become what the Leafs want him to be. We don't know if he's going to go out there and do a 9-2-1 again in a regular NHL season because the North Division was apparently weak. We saw how good he was against Montreal, but Bubble Demko, in my opinion, was more impressive. So the fact that Jack Campbell was not included on their shortlist in October, it kind of makes sense to me, but, it's kind of a tough decision now. trying to consider how good everybody has been in the season. It's just a good problem, I guess, for Team USA to have. Now, obviously, it's not a problem anymore because they're not going to the Olympics, but you get what I mean. So, talk to me in the comments, what do you think about Campbell, about Demko, about John Gibson, Hellebuyck too? Talk to me in the comments, what would you have done had you had to make this decision? Who would have been the starter? Who would have been the backup? Who would have been on the bench? Who would have gotten sent home and not even made the trip out to Beijing? Talk to me in the comments, all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed. This was Josh 99, and bye.